Welcome to Time Out, a podcast that brings creatives together for helpful and insightful discussions. So sit back and enjoy the show. Hey, Sophia, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me again.
It's awesome to have you back for round two. The last time I had you on was April last year, and you were the first person that I launched my little podcast series with, and it was awesome. But, a lot's happened since April, and I just want to catch up with you and see where you've been. So I'm just gonna give you like the spotlight just to reintroduce yourself because we both have new followers now. So who are you and what do you do?
Amazing. Yeah, it's crazy that it's been like since April. It's been over a year since we did it. But yeah, for those of you who don't know, my name is Sophia Carey. I am a photographer from London. I'm currently living in Manchester. I also run a YouTube channel, a little bit like Iz's. Iz's? Yeah, that is right. That sounded
I
so
think
strange when
so.
I
I
said
think it's right.
that.
I think it is. I
um,
don't know.
Yeah, so I talk about fashion photography, film photography, creative freelancing, all that kind of good stuff. Yeah, that's me.
And she is awesome at it. So we'll definitely dive into your work momentarily. But just for the people who missed out or the new followers on both of our ends, we talked about your 10K milestone last time. We talked about your experience as a female photographer on the last podcast. You broke down your process in the pandemic, how you were going to deal with it, and you talked about inclusion and diversity. So there's a lot of different topics in that podcast. So you guys want to check that one out, there's a lot of stuff to unpack there. And on this one, we're going to talk about, completely new topics and, just something that you've experienced since then. So, what's changed about your process since last year? What do you see now differently than you did a year ago? And as you're talking about that, I'm just going to flick through your work and, let people see what you're all about.
Yeah, it's weird because obviously a lot has happened in the last year. Um, so I definitely feel like now I've got a better kind of like work-life balance than I did in the months prior to the pandemic. I feel like I'm taking on work that I really want to be taking on, making more time for passion projects. And definitely with my YouTube, that helps. I think we've spoken about that before, about how YouTube can kind of give you that avenue to do work that you want to be creating rather than work that you've been hired to create. So yeah, I definitely feel like in the last year, my balance, I've kind of got that a little bit better, I would say. I would say before, I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to be constantly working, to be taking on jobs that I necessarily didn't want to be taking on. And as anyone will know, that can kind of kill the passion for you. So definitely feel like I got my balance better.
Hey, I'm happy to hear it. And I mean, the work speaks for itself. I feel like a lot of the work that ends up on your feed is pretty much what you enjoy doing. It's
Hmm.
passion projects mixed in with, the client work that you really care about, that a lot of it is like reflected in your work. And, like you said in the first podcast, like, how would you describe your style? Like, if you just summarize it quickly, because we did break it down quite a lot in the first one, but like, what are you really passionate about in terms of work wise and photography?
Um, it's difficult, I think, to describe my like actual style, but portraiture is it for me. Like I love to just capture portraits of people. Obviously that extends a little bit more into like fashion portraiture, but generally just like a good portrait is my weakness for sure.
Yeah, honestly, like every time I see your shots in portraits, I'm just like, you know what you're doing when it comes to portraits. And like a lot of the people I speak to in this industry, like, they follow you as well for your like iconic portraits. And it's just, I mean, there's just so much to unpack there. And like we did so on the first podcast as well. So you said you were talking about balancing, what you really enjoy doing. And do you feel like you've really like nailed that down now in terms of like you with your YouTube, with the work that you're doing? Have you got like a nice balance of you all the work on here is everything you're really passionate about now?
Yeah, I would say that like my balance is better. I feel like it could still get there a bit more. Like obviously the kind of dream is to get to a point where all of my commercial work is work that I'm really passionate about and that I really want to be doing and in the same sphere that I want to be working in. So I think that's the next step for me is like although it's great having, you know, my commercial work and then my like passion projects as such, it's bridging the gap between that and allowing them to kind of merge and become one.
What's changed about your photography style from last year? Like a year, I'd say a year and a bit now since the last podcast. Like, what do you think you've added to your photography process? Like, what's changed?
Um, I would say like obviously I've got more into film photography, and I think that's
Hmm.
definitely made me more of an intentional photographer. Um,
What does that mean? Like, break that down.
so like I think a little bit more about a photo before I take it, a little bit more about the composition, and kind of frame it up with my eyes a little bit more before I kind of start taking the photos.
Yeah, I love that.
I definitely like take like when I'm shooting on digital, I definitely take a lot less photos than I used to. But I think that's a good thing. I think that means that I'm kind of seeing an image and I know what how I want it and I'm getting it, and then that's that kind of thing. I don't need to take unnecessary images.
Yeah, I think that's something I've learned since, working with you as well, that like that element of like film where every shot, you have to make it count because you can't just like expense all the film roll like you can on a digital shot. I really, when I got like my first real like camera and I realized I had like continuous shooting, I would just spam it completely. I'd be like,
Yeah,
one shot will be good in there somewhere, but then I didn't really appreciate the time, like you're saying, to get those intentional shots of like thinking about it, the framing, everything. And it works a lot better for my workflow. When I come home, there's less images I have to cull through. Like, I really care about all these shots and spending
yeah,
less time looking at stuff that I don't care about. You know what I mean?
definitely, definitely.
Yeah. So, again, like, you're doing not just Instagram, you're also doing YouTube.
Yeah.
And man, your YouTube channel is so successful. Like, I was watching the latest one. I need to finish it off. But like almost 10K on that as well. Like, that's incredible. And you're harnessing your film, your love for film as well. And do you think? Well, one thing I've noticed is I feel like you're really finding an audience for people who love film as well as
Yeah.
fashion and portraits, and you're putting it through your own lens. Like, how do you think your journey on YouTube's been?
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, it's crazy because I think when we did the last podcast, I'd only not long hit 1K. So to be almost at 10K on YouTube is a big feat for me, and I'm really proud of like how far it's kind of come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, film photography definitely changed things for me. Like you said, like I found my own little community, like on YouTube, kind of, and it was able to let me grow and learn a lot more as well. Because if it's one thing that YouTube is not, it's not quiet about when you do something wrong. So you know, people will tell you, and sometimes that's not a great thing, but a lot of the time you can learn from it.
Yeah, so would you say like the experience of feedback on YouTube is different than the one on Instagram? Because for the people who don't know what Sophia is talking about, I mean, you've had some people who are really like savages in the comment section, and I don't just mean like they're just like giving you like throwing bad names at you. It was literally like gatekeeping, almost like,
Yeah,
hey, do you have a
yeah,
degree in what you're saying? Should you be saying it? What gives you the right to be talking about this? It was
yeah,
some comments
definitely.
like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think YouTube is a very different space. I think you get a lot more like an anonymity, if that's the word. So
Yeah, of
like people
course.
can kind of hide behind their screens a little bit more and are a little bit more audacious about what they say. And it's not always kind at all. But you know, I think that's just everyone that's on YouTube kind of experiences that, and it's just one of those things. You know, at
It's
the
a
end of the
growing
day, if you're
pain,
watching
isn't
my
it?
video, you know, I'm still getting paid, so hate away. Do you
Engagement
know
is
what I mean?
engagement, isn't it?
Exactly.
A comment is helping you get more engagement. But obviously, like when someone's writing an essay, it's like, "Hey, do you really have that much time to go that in detail?"
Yeah,
It was just
exactly.
interesting that seeing that like why people are so it wasn't even just with the digital ones, it was like film. And I don't know what you think about this, and I think this is something we could talk about. What's your opinion on, let's say, film photography and like the whole idea of it being like a gatekeep community? Is that like a thing? Like, there are, I think, in generation wise, because you're
Yeah,
like, would you say you're generation Z, right? Gen Z. And it's
I'd
like,
say so. Yeah,
yeah, and like analog photography, like people, let's say, who are like, a lot older, have like really cherished like film photography and analog photography as something they grew up with. but they didn't have social media, so maybe they didn't get all the incentives that you have right now, and maybe they feel like they've left out. And what I'm trying to say is like when you did receive those kind of comments, you think it's just like jealousy, like that people are just like they feel like they've
Yeah,
missed out on the same opportunities you have now.
maybe, maybe. Do you know what? I've never thought of it in that way, but I think it's definitely. Do you know what? It's a certain demographic of people who continuously will comment. It's not just my work, it's kind of every young film photographer on YouTube on the space. They'll comment on it and, give their, I'd say 2 cents, but it's just hate really, isn't it? And yeah, that it's one of those things where I don't think that they're ready to accept like new blood into the community. But it's kind of ironic because like I'm not that old, no, I'm not that young to not remember film photography in my actual life. Like as a kid, like we had film cameras. So it's not like,
Hmm.
you know, it's not like this kind of like revolution where we don't actually care about film photography and we're only doing it for the likes. Like
It's like you're
it's a
rediscovering it as well, isn't it?
yeah, definitely. It's a rediscovery and it's a new generation of photographers who are learning about it and wanting to kind of keep the craft going. And that is something to be celebrated, not something to be kind of like shunned and said like, well,
you
you're not
you
doing it
need a you
right
need a
or
degree, or you need a master's. And like
yeah.
when I read those comments, it was just like, oh god, it wasn't even like a barrage because just like one person, but it builds on that stereotype that like film is such a like a sensitive like topic. People are really passionate about it, but on both ends. And
Yeah.
that's what like interests me about film. Like, is there a right way of doing it? Is there a wrong way of doing it? Or is it just like subjective all around?
Yeah. I think the thing with me and I think the thing with my channel as well is that I'll always say that I'm not an expert when it comes to film photography. Like I'm still learning. That's the whole point. So, for people to get so upset about things when, A, it doesn't affect them, and B, I'm quite openly saying that I'm still learning. I'm not saying that this is the right way to do something. And I think that's the thing. I think that people don't kind of see that bridge of where we're experimenting, we're learning, we're trying to put our own spin on things, and they see it as there's a right way to shoot this film, there's a wrong way to shoot this film, and if you're kind of like differing from what we know, then it's not right, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I do still fall back on that statement that I think it's just in that decade or generation there wasn't as much incentive to monetize it, and now film has become so much more democratized online to
Yeah.
and people can like make a living off it, of YouTube, like you are. And you know um Gunnar Stahl's one of my favorite photographers.
Mm.
Shoots celebrities, music artists on film. He's like 27, 28, something like that. And it's like there's so many like people in the scene who are like rediscovering film in their own niche. And I think
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it. So to say like the comments that were saying something like, I think you don't know what the process of dodging and burning is and how
Yeah.
to use this. And I'm like, dude, like chill. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not
And what
that
was he
deep.
talking about? He was talking about how he has like
Yeah.
a science degree, like a
A
bachelor in
master's. I was
science or
like, this is not
something.
an
Yeah,
interview.
yeah, yeah.
I'd love to show everybody the comments on YouTube, but it's not worth the spat and the beef. So we're gonna keep it nice and positive here. But the point of the question was, since you've been putting more effort into film, I mean, it's interesting to see like how there's such a passion between different generations about film, because like I said, I noticed a lot of people are rediscovering film in the community. I think it's great, and it'll only get better as long naturally as you adapt to learning about film. You'll get better and better at it, and people will see that in your work, right? And I think your work speaks for itself. I think it's amazing. So and a
Oh,
lot of
thank
other
you.
people do as well. Like you get insane amounts of like supporters and champions of yourself on film. So keep it up. um
Thank you.
Speaking of something different, what is your opinion on location shooting? We're both location shooters, and I think it's one of the reasons we kind of connected quite,
Yeah.
well with each other in terms of our style. I get a lot of questions about how I find locations, how I scout locations, what is my process around locations. So, what are your general thoughts on location shooting? And then we'll talk about some more like taboo like subjects about locations.
I love locations shooting. Like it's just, I think that dynamic of using location in your work is definitely something that like another dynamic. I just like it. I just enjoy trying to fit like the kind of shoot around the location and kind of the, how unpredictable locations can be and having to kind of like problem solve and work with the lighting, work with, what you find. It's a much more interesting process for me than studio photography. Although I do like a bit of studio photography, it's just I definitely prefer working on location if I can.
What's some of the hardships that you face shooting on location?
Getting kicked out of places.
For
It's so
real.
weird. Yeah, like it
That's a
being a
based
job and getting
statement.
kicked
Yeah.
out. It's so weird. So
Facts.
obviously like you can get permits and stuff, but that's a bit it takes a bit long and it depends on the client and everything. But yeah, getting kicked out of places and you could scout a location like a week before and then you turn up and it looks different or it's like blocked off or something. Um, so yeah, there are different difficult things. Or if it's really busy. So like for example, lockdown was really good because there was no
Mm.
one out anywhere. So now I'm kind of
Yeah.
having to get used to people being back again and like having to think about it a
Work
little bit
around
more.
it. Yeah. I took it for granted. I was like, cannot wait to just, go into a cafe after after a shoot and just go chill. And I was like, hang on a minute. Like, oh my God, people
Yeah.
are out again. Oh, this is going to be
Yeah,
tough now. I've got to think about how I'm going to plan around, strangers and the possibility of, people coming into the shot.
definitely, definitely.
I think I agree with you there though. When I started shooting on location, and that's the first place I started, and the reason I started shooting on location first was because it is the least amount of required budget for shooting. So anyone new
Yeah,
looking to get into photography, like
it's like the
you've
lowest
got your
entry kind of,
got
yeah,
your light, natural light, you've got your nice little softbox with the clouds, you have amazing backdrops, endless backdrops, and the only thing you can just really focus on harnessing your skills in the framing and how you take the shots and how you process it all. And it was a great way for me to just get confident before I went into studio. And
yeah,
people can do
definitely.
it the other way around as well, but I think our affinity for locations, yeah, the struggle for amounts of things that could go wrong in location. The weather could change, your lighting can change by the second. There are health hazards like cars
Yeah,
coming left, right, and center. I've almost had one person who was like intoxicated, stranger almost pull one of my assistants away, and I was like, oh God, that's so. I mean,
yeah,
one minute I'm
yeah.
just
You
taking
don't want to
pictures
leave
in
your
there.
stuff or
And the
anything.
next
Yeah,
minute I turn around and he's just getting dragged away. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Are you all right? And then,
yeah,
it's just all kinds of different things. But, it teaches you to be so much more like, it teaches you to just think about problem solving. And this is a skill that I've really like appreciated because I found some comfort in discomfort. I found like a way that shooting in location has really made me more confident about just you know every other area of photography is translated and it's like simmered into all those other places like in studio and video and all
definitely,
that kind of stuff. um
definitely.
so let's ask a question then. I get a lot of questions about how do you find locations, like what do you think photographers can do to find these like stunning locations, and is there a cheat sheet or do you just go put in the graft?
You definitely have to put in the work. There's loads of ways you can do it though. Like first of all, I think the best way is to actually walk around an area and look. Keep your eyes open when you're traveling around because it's. I think people, I don't like magic up the locations. Like you see them as you walk around and stuff like that. You make a note of them in your phone. If you drive past something, then you kind of like bookmark it or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, because that's the best way of like getting to know your area. But if you can't get out to an area, using things like Google Maps is a really good
Oh,
way of scouting a
100%.
location.
Yeah,
Using
that's
Street
still
View.
a great avenue for people like you said who don't have the time or
Yeah,
the ability to walk around for so long, which is like completely understandable. Not everyone's going to have that luxury of doing it all the time, but Google Maps is a great starting point.
it,
And
it
then
absolutely is. Yeah,
when you see the location for yourself, it's like you can confirm that it is going to be like that at least to some degree if you're
Yeah,
shooting like in close time frame.
definitely.
Because I've used location on Google Maps, turned up there the next time, and it's like completely different.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. You just got to be creative with it, I think.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
also, I think you've also got to learn like how to make any location look good. Like, do you know what I mean? And like think about the type of lighting, the type of how that location is going to differ in different times of the day. But I think there's a skill in kind of like, finding anywhere, like any location, and just
Hmm.
being able to work with it.
It's a great like self-directed project, like I have no control whatsoever over this location, but
Yeah,
if I work around it, I can bring like such a side to it that like is through my lens is gonna just gonna
definitely,
tell a story, isn't it? And like we've shot like people in the same locations and it's like two different stories, do you know what I mean? And
definitely.
it's like, it's how the way you take the picture, the way you edit the picture, the way you construct it all like with the model and everything. Like yeah, it's not the case of like I have to always find these grand locations. Like if you find
Yeah,
something, just like force yourself to have like a little thought exercise or a little workshop, see what you can bring out of that location.
definitely. And I think that's the thing as well. Like everyone sees the world in a different way, and everyone's
Hmm.
going to see a location in a different way. So you can definitely bring out different things.
100%, yeah. There are some locations on your page, and I'm like, oh my god, like I just if that was me just walking past, I probably wouldn't even notice it. And then until you put it on there, it's now become iconic, and it's like you can see like it's just brought to life, and that's just something I really love about location shooting. I love areas that are just like forgotten and abandoned, and they have no
Yeah,
place or home, and I just want to give something back to that location before it goes away. Because the city that we both live in, Manchester, is like one of the most constantly regenerated cities
yeah,
on
definitely,
earth.
definitely,
Like it literally is. It's always just constantly changing. So you got to capitalize on these little locations quick. And if you do, there's just so much like benefits of like creating great work.
definitely.
So let me ask you another question, and that is, I get asked a lot about locations and should I share them with other creatives. You know, I get a lot of DMs about people asking me, "Hey, where's this location? Um, can you send me this location, please? I'm on a tight time frame. Where did you take the shot, etc." You know the drill. You must get loads
Yeah.
yourself. Like, what's your policy? Like, how do you approach that kind of discussion and conversation?
I think it's a difficult one because, I don't own any locations, so I can't like gatekeep them. But at the same time, it can be frustrating because it's a part of your job to location scout. That is a part of our job. So, we work hard to find the locations that we want to find. Generally, I don't mind telling people where they are, especially if I have a relationship with you. But it does get frustrating when people who've never interacted with you before kind of just message you to ask for a location or something like that. It is frustrating because it's kind of just a bit lazy. Like you can get up and go out and like look at locations yourself.
Oh,
But
like you
in
said,
in the
Google
same vein,
Maps.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But like in the same vein, it's not that deep really. And like I think the frustrating thing about Manchester is that it's so small, so locations get oversaturated really, really quickly. So when
Yeah,
you
they
do
do.
find one, yeah, when you do find one that's really good, and then everyone starts shooting at it, it kind of like kills it off a bit. But at the same time, like that's just part and parcel of it. So you got to deal with it.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it like that before, the way you just said it, which is really interesting. Like it is a small city if you compare it to like places like London, where you'll probably find endless amounts of like locations for, time, right? And there's some like little value to wanting to capitalize on that location, your piece of work, your shot for a small amount of time before everybody jumps on it again, straight away.
Definitely.
And it's a really conflicting feeling because I don't really know how to feel about it. It's like I don't own the location. What right do
Yeah.
I have to gatekeep it? Like if someone asks me, like my first reaction is, "Oh, I really want to give it to them." But then it's like you said, I'll only give it away to people who I have really strong relationships with,
Yeah.
because I know that the first incentive is they always want to. I know that they're really passionate for starters about what they're doing, and I know they're gonna reciprocate that back to me in some other way. Like they'll trade a location with me, or they might give me some assets. Like, we there's loads of ways you can trade information, and I think it doesn't just have to be like a one-way stream. And I think that's the way I think about it. Like, if you have a long-lasting relationship with someone, yeah, definitely share the location. But when someone starts a conversation with me as well, like, and I have no relationship with them, and it's,
Yeah.
hey, where's this location? I find that really just like off-putting.
It's difficult, isn't it? It is that like you're in two minds of it. Like you want to give the location because you're not,
I don't own it, yeah.
you're not trying to be difficult, but at the same time, it can be frustrating. But
Yeah, and I still don't know the definitive answer even till this day. But the easiest way to get locations, like you're saying, out of anyone, just if you're a decent human being, is just to get to know that person first. Take
yeah,
time to
it's a
spend with
little bit
them,
rude, I think,
be genuine
sometimes.
about your intentions, like
Yeah,
go on a shoot with them, shadow them, help them out if they need an assistant. They'll help you out in some other way as well. There's plenty of people that I've given locations to, but there is
yeah,
a certain magic in discovering that location yourself.
definitely, definitely. But I think what it is like it's a little bit. I think it's a little bit rude when you only message someone because you want something. So that's just common decency. That's nothing to do with photography. Like,
For sure.
you don't just like DM someone and like start
Yeah.
asking them everything. Like it's just rude. So like you said, like yeah, building that relationship is definitely important. But also like you said, you do want to do things for yourself, don't you? Like, and just like I don't want loads of people shooting at the same locations because it oversaturates it. You shouldn't want to shoot at a location that's oversaturated either because
That's a great
you
response.
know you want to kind of find something that's unique to yourself or unique to your own
Yeah.
style. And if you can't do
Yeah.
that, then at least shoot that location in a way that's unique to yourself.
There you go. I don't think I could add anything else further to that. I think you nailed it on the head there. And just to play devil's advocate, I understand that for people who definitely are short on time and say like I've got a big platform, you've got a big platform. There might be like full-time freelancers, mood boarding. I just don't have the time. There are instances where I'm like, okay, I understand the position you're in. I understand that.
Yeah,
And you need something quick because obviously like you don't have the time, and you can get hit with deadlines. It just happens in the industry. It moves at like 100 miles per hour. In that position, I'm willing to open that conversation as long as like we can have some sort of trade. So like I give you a location, maybe you can give me a location. Or maybe you
yeah,
can help me out in some way later on. There's always ways that you can work around it. So, but yeah, generally just be a decent human being and just
yeah,
get to know that person first.
definitely. Do you
Um,
mind if I just quickly get a glass of water? Sorry, I'm like
Stay hydrated, people.
drying out. 1 minute. Give me 1 minute.
I'll just chill with the audience. Okay, so while we're just waiting for Sophia to come back, I'll just quickly show you guys a little bit more of her work. And again, I just think, in my opinion, like Sophia and me, where we're very similar, is we both just have like deep appreciations for locations. And if you compare her work and my work, there are a lot of locations that are very similar in the way, in terms of the locations we've used. But like, just to back up what she said, like she's showing the location in such different ways, and I'm showing the locations in such different ways.
Okay, cool.
Hey,
Sorry.
welcome back. I was just quickly just building on that point you said about, that if people were to look at our work, both of ours, there are locations where we have similar locations, but the way we've shot them is so different that it doesn't
Mhm.
feel like it's saturated. It's like your own little unique,
Yeah, definitely.
story, your own little unique, iconic way that you've shot it. So, there's no harm in using those locations as long as you put your own like style to
Yeah,
it.
exactly. But that's the same with everything, I think. People use the same models, people use the same
Yeah, yeah.
clothing, whatever. You got to shoot it in the way that you see it. Otherwise, your work will just look like a replica of someone else's.
So you're not just a fashion and portrait photographer, you are also a wedding photographer.
I am.
And now that everything's opening up, how are you finding it? Like, are you excited about jumping back into wedding photography, or like, have you done any? What's it been like?
Yeah, yeah. I've done. I did quite a few like since the pandemic started. I did a few last year that were kind of smaller ones with like less guests, which was a weird experience. But I think I'm kind of used to doing a COVID wedding now. And
Mm-hmm.
then the ones that are kind of opening up with like less restrictions, they're starting this weekend. So that'll be weird getting back to having like hundreds of guests
Yeah, you're
again.
gonna be going back in full swing.
Yeah, but it's exciting. It's exciting to get back to doing full bigger weddings. Although I did really like the intimate ones, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah,
always like it's less effort for you, isn't it? Like in terms of dealing
yeah.
with all the extra amounts of people that you're gonna have to like put up with. Um,
It was just like being at someone's like Christmas party, Christmas Day or
yeah,
something. It was really nice. So, yeah.
nice and wholesome, I bet. What's it like juggling, you know, fashion and portrait and wedding? Because theirs are so different. So, what's the pros and cons of like diversifying yourself in like different niches in terms of like photography?
Um, I think that I don't know. I think like you kind of have to have some sort of style that runs through it. Um, but I think that's just your eye, isn't it? Like your eye doesn't change between the different types of photography, so you will see kind of like quite a similar style across it. But at the same time, you have to be able to adapt it
Oh
because
yeah,
you
when I
know the
see your
way.
work, I just know it's your work, whether it's in fashion or whether it's in weddings. Like the way you edit, your tones, the portraits, the way you frame it, you just know it's like a Sophia shot. So you're right.
Yeah, but like at the same time, you do have to think about the way you do things. You can't shoot a wedding the same way as you'd shoot like a rapper or the same way
Mm,
that you'd shoot
for
like
sure.
a model for a clothing brand. It is different. So you kind of have to work. I think the biggest difference when it comes to weddings is that, the couple, they're not models. They're not necessarily used to being in front of the camera. So you have to
Oh, I
work
bet
with
that
that.
must be very like difficult to work around sometimes.
Yeah, you have to make them try and feel as comfortable as you
And
can
even
make them.
just capturing, like, how do you know which moment to capture? Like, I would just be lost. I would feel so bad if I missed, like, the money shot. I wouldn't even
I
know what
think
the money shot. I would have a general idea, but, like, there's, like, so much you got to think about.
I think you just have to be like observant and like keep an eye out for like those like special little moments. Like interactions between you through the day. You get to know who different people in the wedding party are,
You
and
gotta be sociable, I'm guessing. Is that something you do
yeah,
a lot on
yeah,
the wedding? You have to talk a lot. You've got to really, like, break down
definitely,
people's walls, and
definitely. You have
it's
to kind of
like,
allow that the people
yeah.
to let their guard down so that because people generally don't like having their photo taken.
Ironically, they want they want it as well.
Yeah, I know.
It must be because like you're in there once in a lifetime opportunity, like for getting married, and you're like a fly on the wall, and it's like I would just be like, why am I intruding so much on this
Yeah,
person's
yeah.
like I just want to let them be, but where do you find the distance between how much is too close, how much is too far away, what's the right space? Or is that just part of like you just know the angles, the game because you've been doing it so long?
I think you have to judge it based on the couple, based on the families. You know, at the end of the day, it's just people skills. It's just kind of reading the room and understanding like dynamics between different people, which dynamics are most important to capture. You know, understanding what shots the couple are really important to the couple, looking out for those shots. And then obviously just looking at what looks nice as well. Like yeah, you got to get a bit of that as well.
Yeah, 100%. So would you say that being a fashion photographer is much more work, or being a wedding photographer is much more work?
Wedding photography, hands down, hands
Yeah,
down.
longer
Yeah,
days, isn't it? Longer, much more longer days.
yeah, longer
Uh,
days, longer planning process, more meetings, more. The clients don't always know how photography works, so you've got to like kind of work with them to familiarize them to the concept. They've also not got married before, most of them, so you have a better understanding of how the wedding day is going to go than they do.
Interesting.
So yes, definitely, it's a lot more work, a lot more work.
Which one do you enjoy more?
I can't tell you. I don't know, like for wedding photography, obviously it means more. So it's nice to kind of have that, like, you've captured someone's special day. And when you look back at the photos, you're like, wow, like it's such an honor to be a part of that day. But at the same time, sometimes like it can be a bit stressful depending on the day. So I think like, yeah, they kind of weigh out. I kind of enjoy them equally in that sense.
It's an honest answer. I won't push you too much on that one, but honestly, the only way you get me to do a wedding if there was like some hype beast wedding somewhere where everyone's just kitted out. Oh, that would be so crazy. I don't know how you do it, but I think I think diversifying yourself is great because, it's interesting because I had a conversation on my last podcast where we talked about specializing and why it's important. So would you say diversifying is something that's just equally as important?
I would say, I'd say like that specializing is important, but you should be able to diversify if you need to, kind of thing.
Hmm. If
I
you
think
definitely
there's
want to go full
yeah,
time.
yeah. You have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to diversify to have different streams of income, to be able to, you know, I think the pandemic, if that's taught us anything, it's to say don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, for
If I
sure.
was purely a wedding photographer, this time last year would have been very difficult for me when all of the weddings stopped. Or
Yes.
the earlier on that year. But yeah, so I think it's important to kind of have a specialism, but you should be able to adapt and work in other niches if you need to.
I think you've um, shown that as well, not just in your wedding game, but let's just quickly check out some of your studio work because that's something you've been doing as well, which I've noticed. You're not just a location shooter, you're also a studio shooter. And how do you find grounding all these different like places? Like, do you have like on-off switches where it's like, okay, I need to get into studio zone, location zone, wedding zone? Like, what's the mindset when you go into like different kinds of shooting?
Yeah, I feel like that happens though, just depending on the client. If you're shooting with one model, or if you're shooting with a brand, or if you're shooting with a musician, you kind of have to change what you're doing anyway, and the mindset you're in, and the eye you have, and the things you're thinking about. Even between film and digital, or shooting black and white and color, you constantly as a photographer have to change what you're looking for in an image. So, but I think you get used to it as time goes on.
Oh, 100%. And it's good to see you jumping in like all these different dimensions of photography because it's just a testament to like how far you can push yourself. But, as photographers, this was something I also wanted to do. And, I didn't want to all just be contained in my little box of location shooting. I also started experimenting with video. I also started doing studio
Hmm.
shoots, and it increased my income. Like it's avenues where people have different needs, and it's like if you can do
Hmm.
it, then you'll just capitalize off it in like many great ways. And it's just like you're getting more confident, in all the different areas that you can, again, re-specialize in.
Definitely. I think that's the thing as well. Like if you are primarily a location shooter, if you don't know how to shoot in studio, that's where the problem becomes, because you will get clients that want you to do a whole campaign, and that includes ecom in a studio as well as location. And if you don't know how to do that ecom bit, you could potentially lose out on the whole campaign. So I
Yeah,
think it is important to kind of
100%.
know how, even if
No.
it's not your specialism, know
Yeah,
how
and,
to do it.
and most clients will not want to deal with like one ecom photographer, one location photographer, unless it's like really specialist requirements. That's
Hmm.
totally understandable. But like, when you're starting out, most clients will just want a photographer, a videographer.
Definitely,
Photographer's
definitely.
gonna do both studio, location. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
it's in your best interest to at least dip your toes in like these different avenues, even if you're not gonna use the work. Find the time, or like you have all the time when you're starting out, I guess, to experiment with all these. I was just doing I was just hiring out a studio and just testing how lighting works,
Hmm. It
what
is
works,
difficult, I
what
think.
doesn't.
Like when we're talking about like barriers to entry in photography, like obviously location is a lot easier because, like you said earlier, you've got the light out there, you've got the
The least
location, you
amount
don't
of
have to.
budget as well.
Yeah, exactly. So when you start working with studio, it does get a little bit more difficult because you have to hire things out, you have to spend money. And so I completely understand that. I'm definitely not as confident in studio as I am on location. And that is just as because I do more location. It's not as easy to practice in studio unless you're willing to put the money in or you're on job, and that can be risky to kind of like experiment when you're actually on the job.
For sure. And since the last time we talked, you finished university.
Hmm.
And what advice would you give to people thinking about university in general? Not even just about doing a degree in whatever. It's just what do you think the value of the degree is for creatives right now in general. Do they need it? Do they not need it?
Or the degree or the uni experience, because they're two
Both,
different
actually.
things.
Yeah, let's talk about both.
Um, I it's difficult because obviously people are going to make up their own mind. You have your own experiences, you have your own idea about where you want your career to go. For me, the best thing about uni was the life skills it gave me. Moving 220 miles away, not living with my parents, not living with my family, meeting people from completely different walks of life, understanding different accents, like silly things like that.
You said before, people skills, you need them for being a photographer, so the social
You do.
experience is great way to get those people skills.
And networking as well. Like you move to a new city or whatever, you become your own in a new city and meet new people. So it's good for that, I'd say. But for me, I studied graphic design, so I didn't study photography. But for me, I don't think that as a creative you need a degree. I've been working as a photographer since I was like just turned 17, and I've never once been asked for any
So
of my
it's,
qualifications.
before uni even.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got GCSEs, I've got A levels, I've got a degree, and I've never been asked for them, never. And I'm not saying you
Hmm.
can't be asked. Like if you went to work in an agency or something, then that's different. But as a freelancer, like it's not impacted my career one way or the other.
I think there are some incentives, I'd say, to uni, and it could be that you get free studio hires, you get free loan equipment, you get all these stuff that might be difficult if you don't have like a budget to buy your own gear. You can at least loan
Mm,
hire out. It's all insured. You don't have to worry about all this crazy stuff. And there's
definitely.
a
And
lot
also
of
depending on your
yeah,
course, like you get access to like different industry professionals and like
events.
workshops and networking, stuff like that. Like I said, I didn't study photography, so I can't say that I took advantage of like
Yeah.
free studio hire or anything like
I
that.
think the
But
key thing you did say was though that no one's ever asked you for a degree.
mm,
So can people do everything we're saying without the degree? Or would it
yeah,
require a certain personality to be an extrovert to do all those things?
I don't think you need a degree. I've never studied photography in my life, and you know, I never have. Like my degree was in graphic design. I'm not a graphic designer, but you know, I don't have any qualifications in photography at all. So you definitely do not need a degree. I think it can help, especially if you're starting out in your career and you don't know where you want to go by that time you turn 18 or whatever. Then yeah, it gives you 3 years of kind of like a cushion to work out what you're
Hmm.
doing and financially sort yourself out. But I think that's the difference. I think a degree can be useful, but it's not a necessity.
Begs the question, is it worth the amount of money that it is now
You
as
never
well?
pay it off, so I think that's kind of like,
Yeah, and
you know what I mean?
there's a lot of information online, and just looking at your YouTube channel as well, like, do you think you're offering a vast amount of information to people for film as well. So, when you go to university, one of the downsides is they will never be able to accommodate everyone's sort of interest and niche. So they
Yeah.
have to teach the syllabus holistically. And I'm only saying this because I've been a teacher, so I kind of know how, they have to make all these schemes of work and how they have to like cater towards everyone's interest. It's just impossible. You'll have
Hmm.
moments where you dip your feet into like your personal projects, but essentially someone is telling you what they think you should be doing in the industry. And by the time they make that outline and that scheme of work, I genuinely think it's already outdated because
Yeah.
they'll have to teach it for a year. Um, and the industry is constantly adapting and evolving daily, if not
Mm.
sometimes even like, you know, on the fly, like trends just come and go, like, you know what I mean? So you can use
Yeah.
platforms like YouTube to like you know, self teach yourself from like people like you. You have Skillshare as well that you're making
Hmm.
courses on online, which is great. I find a lot of value in Skillshare, and I signed up to it, and it was like £50 for a year, and it was like the pandemic discount. So even
Mm.
if it's like £100 a year, you're paying £100 a year compared to 30 something altogether grand for like
Yeah.
a uni degree.
I think
I
as
don't
well,
know.
like you don't even need Skillshare. Like you said, like with YouTube, with even like you can do like Google digital courses for free. Like there's so much free content online that will teach you more probably than uni, because like you said, you can design that almost curriculum yourself
Yep.
by just learning what you want to learn and what you actually are interested in and what's going to benefit you. So yeah, the internet, we're in a world where like education is so accessible.
It's
It's
been
insane.
democratized as well. You know, you don't have these people who I don't know. I when I this is the thing, right? I'm such a hypocrite because I signed up to do a master's in photography. Don't know why.
Mm,
I don't really feel like I needed it, and I'm like halfway through it, and then the pandemic hit, and I said I'm taking time off until I feel comfortable enough to come back because I don't really
yeah,
rely. I've never really relied on the degree. I just felt like it'll keep me it'll keep me on my toes, you know, thinking and not getting lazy. But then I realized there are ways I can do that anyway.
yeah,
Like I can just make like a daily journal. I can make my own course. I can do my own little notes every day that I want to like, you know, learn about. I can go to Sophia's channel and learn about film. I can go to someone else's page, learn about fashion and, you know, video from this person. And it's like, why am I waiting for the lesson to come that I want on this course when all I'm being taught about is stuff that has no interest to me. And that's
yeah,
what I felt like when I was on this master's course. And it's no like ill will to the people teaching it. It's just
yeah.
impossible to cater to everyone's taste on a course. It's just
Definitely,
impossible.
definitely. I think that's the
So
thing. It's, education is more accessible than it ever has been. So there's no reason you can't go out and kind of learn and do things yourself and work out what works for you. So yeah, there's definitely, I think university is one of those things. It works for some people, it doesn't work for others. I think it's very what's the word, like individual, what's the word, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
it's very catered towards like your individual needs, right? Yeah, you got to figure it
Yeah,
out based on you. Because like for stuff like medicine, I completely understand it. I
yeah,
completely
obviously, yeah, you're not
for
you're not going to
law,
be like
you
a
know. Yeah, there's
yeah,
like there's like
yeah,
ground rules. You all have to play the same game, right? But
definitely.
with creative subjects, it's like subjective, isn't it? It's like everything's subjective. So I usually tell people like if you need to build confidence and you're someone who's not a people's person, go to uni. It will force you to get out of your comfort zone because you're spending that money. You're gonna feel guilty for not socializing. You're gonna feel guilty for not using the studio. You're gonna feel guilty for not borrowing equipment. It's like,
Yeah,
why did you go then in the first place?
yeah,
So
definitely, definitely.
100%. So I wanted to ask you your thoughts about the industry. Um, what is one thing you currently love about being in this industry?
The freedom of doing what you want every day. Today I'm sat speaking to you. Tomorrow I'll be doing something else.
100%.
Yeah, having the freedom to do something different every day. One day's a studio shoot, the next day's a brand campaign, and then the day after's a wedding. Like it's crazy. Like
I love that. Yeah.
you couldn't choose a job where every day is more different than what we do.
Yeah. And it's not easy. You have to work for it for sure. So what
Definitely.
would you say is what is one way the industry could improve itself?
Um, do you know what? It's a difficult question. There's probably a lot of things it could improve on. Um,
One thing that concerns you, one thing that worries you, one thing you don't like, but any of those kind of like ideas, you know, what's one thing that kind of keeps you thinking about the industry? Like, what's going on here?
I think that, obviously we've come a long way, but I think there could still be more opportunities to like diversify the industry, to make it more accessible, to, we've still got like nepotism and stuff like that in this industry. Like the
Yeah,
fact that,
it's
yeah,
it's
like,
big. It's big.
yeah, exactly. Like, who was it? Brooklyn Beckham got the ranking internship.
Oh yeah, I
Like,
didn't even realize Brooklyn Beckham did like photography and things like that on film as well, wasn't it? And I was
yeah.
just like, oh look, it's just a cool kid working out film. But you know, there are certain people I like. God, the name's just gone now. You know, what's the guy's name? Those twins from Nickelodeon, Zach and Cody, Sweet Life. One of
Oh,
them is
yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
really famous photographer, and I love
Cole,
his work.
Cole Sprouse.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's brilliant. Yeah.
freaking love his work. Yeah, like I absolutely love it. But I've seen his journey and like how he's gotten there, and it's like, but yeah, the Beckham story was just hilarious. What the hell?
Yeah, so it's a lot of that. I think, I think it's changing, but I think it could still be more accept. Like I'm talking like high end photography. I'm talking
Yeah,
about like
yeah,
when you really get to your game, I think, that could be more accessible because, we've still got things in this industry such as like free internships, which just shouldn't exist. Like you shouldn't be doing unpaid internships
Oh
because
yeah, it's just
it creates that divide. It
how do they
makes
even sell that? Like, is it just the idea that if you get internship, what you're actually buying into is access, and then it's up to you to like work around getting that access once you're in there? But there's no
Yeah,
guarantee, is
but
there?
that's the thing. So doing an unpaid internship, yeah, you do get access. You do get access to resources, to contacts, all that stuff. But and making it unpaid makes it only accessible for people who can afford to do unpaid work.
Yeah.
That creates a problem in this industry that, if you're from a working class background, if you can't afford
Hmm.
to take the time out of work or to work for free, then you can't have access to those opportunities.
Yeah, and
Um,
paid in, no, and then people just be like, why don't I just go work part time in McDonald's instead? That's better. Like,
yeah, exactly. It just, there's it shouldn't be a thing. You shouldn't have unpaid internships. It's not in this day and age.
yeah, when it comes to like it's such a free market that's like a wild west. Like there are basically like it's not like a government policy like hey, okay, this is illegal, that's it. Like just like you could discuss the terms and you can do whatever you want, you got to really learn about protecting yourself in terms of like how you navigate yourself in the industry. And I think a lot of people, especially when, again, this is something that a lot of people don't have told me when they're at uni, that they don't learn about the logistics of negotiating. That is so big. Oh
Yeah,
my god,
pricing,
like
contracts, all
yeah.
of that stuff. Yeah.
Even without all that, like just the lingo of talking to a client or talking to a potential client, the art of like negotiating, the psychology behind it all, the stress, the anxiety, the positives, this stuff is not unpacked, like at uni, and I don't understand why. And maybe there
Even
are
like email
some
etiquette, I think, the amount of people that I come across that don't know how to write an email properly, like
some
that
people, yeah. People don't
that
even realize why it's important to have those email exchanges in the first place, because now on social media, when you're discussing sensitive topics like prices and things like that, you know, you can go back and delete those messages, and it's like you never
hmm
had that conversation. So like,
definitely.
do email exchanges, unless you're with a really nice client and you've built a long relation, you just know them, right? But
Yeah.
it's important to have like, email exchanges, and like the etiquette thing that you're talking about.
Mm.
Yeah, I think
Because
that's
how you come across is could be the make of whether or not you get that client, and being able to write kind of like a well worded professional email is really important. Like it so much of our job is communication, is logistics, is understanding how to work with people and talk to
yeah,
people.
doing contracts, doing
Yeah.
invoices, doing deposits, all these kind of different things, right? Like just came at me like 100 miles per hour. I was like, oh, I was comfy for so long in a 9 to 5 job that I'd get my little paycheck and I'd be like, sweet,
Yeah.
you know.
And like I know, like I remember the first time I got asked to do an invoice and I was like,
The heck's
and
one of
like
those?
Googling what is it? And like now, like if I need someone to invoice me, whether it's kind of like
Mm,
an assistant or a model or something, then I'll always say to them, like, do you need me to send you a template? Because I know that not many
mm,
people, especially when they're
that's
starting
handy.
out, like know how to do that stuff. Like we're just kind of expected to go and do it and learn,
Yeah.
and half the time we don't know what we're doing.
I think they could, yeah. And my advice to like people jumping on the scene right now, thinking about how to set up their infrastructure of being a creative. Oh my God, just research all that stuff beforehand, because it's harder to negotiate those stuff afterwards once you've already got like your client base set up and it's like, hey, why are you asking for this now? Oh, why, what? Like it'll come
hmm
like, so it's better to like get those things from the get-go and just learn about it and
Yeah.
just take your time, like don't rush. I know there's like incentives to urgently like jump in and earn money and get access and get clout, but there is no, like, I'm 29 now, and like I am still taking it slow every day on this journey, like there is no reason for me to continue and like over rush myself into something I don't want to be in just for the sake of
hmm
it, so just, yeah,
Yeah.
like keep educating yourself on the literature, read books. Like um one of my favorite books about negotiation is by Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. Yeah. I think that's a great one, and there's loads of other ones around it all, and just like working to like negotiate. That's a big one.
Definitely.
Um, I wanted to move on to your other socials because you don't just do YouTube, you also do TikTok. How are you finding that?
um, I'm finding it difficult to be consistent. Making micro content is not something I'm used to yet, so I think I'm still learning the kind of learning what to do really. Like I've said before, I actually said it in an interview that I did recently that like it's the first time that I ever felt like I was too old. Like
I
it's
feel
a
like that now.
completely
Just
yeah,
doing YouTube.
it's something different to kind of get used to. But I don't know, like hopefully I'll be able to use it more often and get to grips with it and
I think you're doing great though. Like it's not something that requires you to create too much extra content, but I understand the benefits of how far like this could go if that one
yeah,
piece of content really blows up. And that's what we all really are banking on, aren't we? We're like, someone will hit this content and it'll give me like a funnel of traffic eventually. Or you just, creating that content anyway.
yeah,
Is good for you. It's good. It's like you're repurposing all that extra
yeah.
experience and that extra like entertainment that is just wasting away on your phone, like you know
Definitely, definitely. I think the thing I always forget is to actually make it, but I have really bad storage on my phone, and so I
oh, the
don't always
same.
have like that much stuff on my phone. So I have to put it onto my laptop, and
Yeah.
then I have to go and get it off my hard drive and actually put it
Mm,
all together. And
yeah,
that whole process is a lot longer than I think people sometimes
especially
think
when
it is.
you're a full-time freelancer and every single like hour, day, week counts of your time. So yeah,
Definitely.
I've bought like a little Manfrotto style tripod and I'm gonna experiment now with every shoot. I'm just gonna like leave it there on the floor. I'm just gonna just film the whole shoot and just see what I can use at the end of it all, just to give me a little bit more like incentive to start doing like what you're doing.
Yeah, it's
And
hard. It's hard. It's hard to remember, but
yeah, but luckily, like me and you, we're in without patting our own backs, demand for like, assistance. There are a lot of people who message me weekly, and I'm pretty sure they do for you as well. Like,
yeah.
can I come on a shoot? Can I get work experience for uni? I need to block in this many hours. I just want to like chat it, and they just say like, "Hey, I'll film you BTS." I'm like, at first I was like, "Oh, no, I don't want to do that. You just come in and you take pictures yourself as well. It's a shared experience." Now I'm like, actually, I'll take you up on your offer.
Yeah, definitely. I honestly like most of my YouTube is people who assist me and I ask them if they don't mind like shooting some
Yeah, I
BTS
feel
and
so
stuff like
bad sometimes, just like they're just standing there, but I try and get them involved as much as possible. Like I'm like, bring your camera, you are taking shots, and you can use the
yeah,
content.
definitely, definitely. And
Um,
I'll always, if I've got someone for like a full day and they're filming, then I'll always try and like give them some money for it or whatever. And
yeah, I'll like cover their travel costs or anything. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. Like
exactly. And
I
I'll
just,
always like make sure to kind of like plug them hard in my videos and stuff like that. But
yeah, 100%. I'll just be like
yeah,
spam their like at on my Insta.
yeah, exactly, exactly. You have to.
I think you're doing a fantastic job of juggling all these different things. It's hard work, but it sounds bad and it's the harsh reality, but this is the amount of effort it takes to really build yourself a platform, isn't it? Like
Definitely.
it's not an attractive sell as getting a 9 to 5 job, getting a nice salary every month. Like, geez, I was getting paid on holidays. I was living life with, but no, I wasn't. I was like stressed. It was a stressful job, and I was like thinking the other day, I would take this any day over what I'm doing, because there are sometimes I'm like, next month I'm like, oh my god, I have no outline for what's coming next month, but it always comes. Like it's so weird.
That's the
Like it
thing. It
always
is weird.
comes. Like
It is
it
weird
always
because
comes.
you have to get used to that though, don't you? You have to get used to that being okay with it being uncertain sometimes because you will get like a month, especially around winter, like every now and then you get a month where you're not sure what's coming in. And
Especially with fashion, it's seasonal. So
yeah.
I've understood that when we're going to shoot a summer campaign, we're actually going to shoot it a lot earlier. So
Yeah,
it's normal for me to not have stuff in that following month because that's when the content is being, and all these different things. It's like I've learned to be a lot more conservative with my money. I'm learning how to spend more wisely on things I need instead of things I want. Learning to deal with the anxiety through just reading, mindfulness, all these different things. It's like, oh my god, like it's actually making me into. a much more mature person,
Hmm.
in terms of like how I want to develop myself. And I realized when I was teaching, I just took everything for granted. I was like, it's okay, getting paid next month. I'll just splash out
Yeah.
on this. Oh, it's all right. I'll just, you know, splash out on all this stuff. And I was like, dude, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think something that I try to talk about a lot on my channel is like money management and how important it is as a freelancer, um, because you don't want that extra kind of pressure of not knowing what your money's doing, where it's going, and how it's coming in, and feeling on top of that can completely change your mindset and allow you to feel a lot less like overwhelmed in everything that you're doing because
mm,
you have to know what you're doing with your money if you're going to be a freelancer because you will not be able to pay your rent, you will not be able to pay your bills, and if
yeah,
you want to get on
yeah.
the property ladder and you've never put in a tax return before,
I
it's not going to
mean,
happen. Like you
you're
need to know what you're
investing
doing.
in stock markets and crypto, aren't you? So like these little extra things you're doing on the side, and I'm just it's just like this is just all speaking to the freedom you have. We wouldn't get all these incentives to do all this if we were in like other full-time jobs that would take up a lot of our time of day. Maybe we would, but
Hmm.
it's just a lot more fun to do it this way.
Definitely, you get
You
to
are
live
your
your
own
life how you
boss.
want. You almost
Yeah.
get to design your life, don't you?
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
work to design
Yeah.
it for
And people don't understand this, and this is just part of just me again trying to educate myself and read. But personality traits play such a big role. I don't know if you know about the big five personality traits, and each sort of personality trait has like different proclivities. And I realized that my proclivities were that I am very like rebellious in my nature. So when I was put in a job that had a lot of structure and order, all I was doing was thinking of ways to like change up the game. And I was telling people like, hey, would you think about like online web teaching? I feel like this will be really big in the future. Hey, what do you think about teaching like this? Or hey, what do you think about trying this new online system out? They're like, don't know, it sounds a bit risky. And then when I left and I started doing all this risk taking in creative work, it pays off because like you need those kind of people to problem solve, to think outside the box. Like a lot of the times clients come to me and it's like we've had a drought of like content. We need something to spice up our content. We need creatives to solve. And I'm like, I'm the perfect guy for that.
yeah,
But and that's what I realized, not everyone's calling is being a freelancer, being a creative. So just really understand what you're gonna get into.
definitely,
So
definitely.
100%. So I'm gonna wrap up by doing a nice little fun quiz, this
Okay.
or that, photography edition, and let's see what your general like impulses are. So let's have a look, guys. Oh, this or that, photography edition. Okay, so quick fire answers. Yeah, I don't need to think about it too much. Film or digital?
Ah, it's a new film.
Oh, okay. Outdoor or indoor?
Outdoor.
Street or studio?
Street.
Portrait or landscape?
Portrait.
Aerial shots or macro shots?
Um,
Come on, Sophia.
I don't know. I don't do either really. So
Pick one.
I like that to look at aerial shots more. So let's go with
Okay.
that.
Saturated or desaturated shots?
Neither. In the middle.
Okay. Fair. Nature or technology?
What? Just generally, or in photography?
Could be both. Do you like the idea of nature more? Do you like the idea of technology more?
Let's go nature.
Okay. Candid or posed?
Candid.
Candid. Okay. Presets or freestyle?
What in editing?
Yep.
Um, Another middle one. I'm throwing your game out the window here.
Yeah,
In
you
the
are.
middle.
You're
In the
just
middle.
so not going to plan. Okay, well, that's it, man. Thank you so much for coming on. And I feel like I've learned a lot, just from this conversation. Is there anything you have to say to wrap up, like, final pieces of famous last words
I am gonna
for people?
sneeze. That is my
Oh,
one
okay, all
minute,
right.
one minute, one minute, one minute, one
Going
minute.
out with a
No, we're
bang.
good. We're good. We're good. We're good.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much for having me on.
Nah, it's
It's
all
always good
good.
to chat to
I
you.
hope people take a lot from this, and I definitely did. And
Oh,
we'll
I've got delivery.
just
Give
in
me 1 minute.
time.
Give me 1 minute. I'm
Okay,
coming
no.
back.
Okay, she's coming back, everybody. Um, don't really know what to say, to be honest. I guess I'll just say her. Okay, Sophia definitely needs to clean her clean her place up. um, yeah. So oh, here she is. Yeah,
Okay, I'll go and get it in a minute.
okay. I definitely wasn't telling everyone that you need to clean your place up in the back. Yeah. So just wrapping up. Have you got any last piece of advice for like? I get a lot of like, especially younger people watching this. People thinking about uni. People thinking about starting off when they're younger. What's the one last piece of advice you'd give to people, young people
um,
especially?
I think just keep practicing, especially with photography. You'll always learn something if you just keep doing it and learn from that.
Hey, that sounds great. Sophia, thank you so much. And we'll catch up with
No,
you
thank
again in
you.
another year's time.
Amazing. Perfect.
Take it
Thank you.
easy. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Time Out. Don't forget to support each guest by checking out their work in the description. And you can also support the show with a like, subscribe, and hitting that notification bell. Till then, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one.